All right, good evening, everybody. We will now start the January 27th Planning and Zoning meeting. Would you please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance? Anne, could we please do a roll call?
Yes, Commissioner Kent,
Here.
Commissioner Minotti,
Here.
Chair Geeson Fields.
Present. All right, the first item up for consideration is the consent calendar. We have two items on the consent calendar. Planning application 15095, design review for an addition at 1106 Portland, and the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting minutes from January 13th. Is there anybody in the audience, a member of the public, who'd like to pull an item from the consent calendar for us to discuss? Or a commissioner who'd like to pull an item?
Well, I would like to pull 1106.
Okay, very well. I'm actually, I'm going to pull the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting minutes also, just because I have a little question. Okay, if you like, we can start with 1106. Would you like a staff report for it, or?
No, I just have a question. I don't know if the applicant's here, maybe even Ann can answer it. The question is the fence in front. It looks like it's about 6 feet high. I thought the front fence had to be 4 feet, or not more than 4 feet.
Typically, it's when it's out the front of the main house. This is secondary to the main house, so it can go up to 6 feet tall.
So it's within the code to do it 6 feet tall.
Correct. Yeah.
I guess I have a question about this project. Maybe you can clarify this for me. I think in the staff report, it said that the applicant will be providing 2 off-street parking spaces.
Yeah.
But if, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because they have a second dwelling unit, they're required to have 3 total parking spaces? Or was there an exception?
In this case, they only need 1 parking space for the main house and 1 parking space for the second unit. The way the property is configured, they have more off-street parking than is actually required. So they do meet the minimum standards, but they can also accommodate an additional car as well.
Okay, good. Satisfies my questions. Does we have a speaker from the public? You just state your name, Alexa.
My name is Alexa Hauser. I'm a member of the Diverse Housing Working Group. And as such, I'm delighted to see a project come before the commission that includes a second unit, and glad to see that it is continuing to be a second unit. I don't know if the applicant is here this evening, but one of the things that is important to our group is that we take the opportunity with second units to see the degree that that second unit can provide housing that is affordable to more than just market rate rentals. And of course, this project is increasing the size, so I imagine that the rent of such a unit would increase should it be made available for renting. But we have information here that I would like to share with the applicant about the value of having second units be part of the solution for providing a range of affordability in our rental units in town. So is the applicant here this evening?
I apologize for being late, but I believe you're talking about.
1106
Yeah.
Portland?
Yes, so we're here.
Okay, so I'm going to, you all are very familiar with this, but I'll pass it to you anyway, since it's your meeting. And pass one to the applicant as well. Thank you very much.
May I address that?
Sure, if you'd like to, you can come and address the commission. Please feel free to state your name, and afterwards, if you could just fill out a speaker card just so we have a record. Great.
Yeah, my name's Charles Keene, and there's a couple of things that, you know, you might want to be aware of. We've been providing affordable housing in the city of Albany for about 12 years now. And we also are committed to having diversified housing, and that our building is a mixed-use building that is about 30% occupied by elderly and 30% occupied by families and 40% by students and young families. And any rental unit, unless you're just, you know, after market rate, is subsidized in the city of Albany. And this particular unit that we're doing, first of all, we're not asking for any variances. And secondly, we're making it so that it's available. It's got a ramp up to it, so it'll be available for elderly. And I guess thirdly, we're sort of moving on in our years, and we're considering moving into this unit. So,
Okay,
anyway.
great, thank you. Unless there are any other comments from the public, I'm going to close the public comments on this item. Unless there's further discussion, would somebody like to make a motion on this single item?
Yeah, I would move item 4A, PA 15095, which is 1106 Portland, per the staff recommendations.
Okay. I'll second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So your project has been approved. There's a 14-day appeal period, so just keep that in mind. But otherwise, you're good. Thank you. The next item up on the consent calendar is the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting minutes. So I had a couple minor edits to that, but I actually wanted to see if we could, I was going to suggest that we continue it to the next meeting so that the other commissioners could have a chance to, especially Doug, to review the minutes, since it concerns the general plan, which is
Yeah,
kind
that's
of
a big one, yeah.
important issue. Just give them a free chance. If
Yeah, that's fine.
Agree, yeah.
okay, do I need to make a motion, or can we just?
Just a motion to continue to, motion to continue to February 24th.
Okay.
I would move that 4B, the meeting minutes, be continued till we're meeting on the 25th, right?
I think it's 24th.
24th, okay, thank you.
Well, I'll second that motion.
All
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, so we are done with the consent calendar. The next thing is public comments. Is there anybody in the public who would like to speak on an item that is not on the agenda tonight?
Good evening again, Commissioners. Alexa Hauser, the Diverse Housing Working Group. I just wanted to thank publicly Commissioner Minotti for his comment at your last meeting, asking the question on when you were talking about your work plan, about is there anything proactive that the city can be doing to increase the likelihood that housing will be built here and that housing will be at a range of affordability levels. I really appreciate that attitude. You shouldn't be surprised by that, but I wanted to say it. And just thank you for your willingness to look for things that the commission can do, given its role. And the Diverse Housing Working Group stands with you and ready to mobilize in the community should there be additional actions that you want to take. So, thank you very much.
Is there anybody else from the public who'd like to speak on an item not on the agenda tonight? All right, with that, I will close the public comment period. And now we will move to the action or agenda items. The first one up for consideration is planning application PA 15-107, design review and conditional use permit for a second-story addition at 923 Ordway.
Okay.
Staff?
Before you this evening is a request for design review and a conditional use permit to extend a non-conforming wall at 923 Ordway. The subject site is 5,580 square feet with an existing 1,178 square foot, 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom home that was built in 1923. The existing wall on the north side of the property is non-conforming. It's located 3 feet 4 inches off of the property line, so in order to extend that vertically, a use permit is required. The subject site is slightly unusual in that it is not a perfect rectangle. It has a little bit of what I characterize as a divot here at the back of the property, which is actually part of the property on Ventura, at 916 Ventura, and it shares 2 rear neighbors, both on Ventura at 914 and 916. This is the street view if you happen to go out there. This is the house as it looks today. With this proposed scope, the applicant will convert the existing first floor into new living space, and the second story will locate all of the bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, as well as a laundry on the new second floor. Altogether, this results in a 2,409 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom home with a maximum height of 27 feet, 8 3/8 inches. And this is the addition as it's proposed. From the existing street view, the stairs go out to the street. With this proposed design, the front porch is going to be modified, and the stair access will be turned to the inside of the property. So rather than having direct access from the street, it's going to have access from the side, creating a little bit more privacy to get into the home, as I understood it. The stairs are perhaps a little too inviting for people passing by, but I think ultimately this actually enhances the appearance of the home. And you can also see that the window details are proposed to carry forward to the second story. They're going with, sorry, the screen keeps going yellow. There we go. But they are carrying forward the same divided light windows and rafter tails underneath the gables on the second story. There's an existing garage that's located at the back of the property that is not in great condition. It's proposed to be removed entirely, and in its place will be a 275 square foot accessory structure that's intended to be used as a storage shed as well as a garden potting shed. The structure will have a 3-foot setback from the rear property line and a 6-inch setback from the southern property line. These are the elevations that were provided to you of the accessory structure. It will have carriage doors facing out into the driveway, but it will not be accessible for a vehicle to park. And then it will have French doors on the side to access the rear portion of the accessory structure. And just one thing to clarify, the plan noted a 9-foot height. The code is actually an 8'6" height, and I checked this with the project architect, and she informed me that that wall is in fact 8 feet 6 inches. This was an error. 2 off-street parking spaces are proposed to be located in the adjacent driveway, fully code compliant. The project is categorically exempt pursuant to Section 15303 of CEQA. And with that, we recommend approval of both design review and the conditional use permit for this project. You received quite a bit of correspondence, and I left hard copies for you on the dais this evening. So hopefully you've had time to review that. And with that, the architect is here, as well as the property owners, and I have 3 speaker cards.
All right. Does anybody have any questions for Ann?
Is the driveway being regraded, or is it staying the way it is?
I might have to, is it being regraded?
Well, just because those new steps you're adding, it shows a landing there of sorts.
Why don't maybe we'll save this question for the applicant
We'll wait, okay.
when they come. And could you just clarify for me, Ann, the non-conforming northern wall, that's 3'4" inches
Yeah,
off
so
the property
there's
line?
actually 2 non-conforming walls. There's a half bathroom that projects out of the wall currently. That is about a foot off of the property line. That is not proposed to be touched.
Okay.
That's going to remain in its current configuration. The bulk of the wall, though, for that north side of the home is at 3 feet 4 inches, and that will be extended.
Okay. If there are any other questions of staff, would the applicant like to present?
Good evening. I'm Stacy Eisenman. I'm an Albany resident as well as the architect, and the clients are here as well. So they'd be happy to say a few words if need be. A couple thoughts I just wanted to share with you when we were designing this is that we intentionally designed it so that the volume of the roof would be as low as possible, and the way that we did that is we set an 8-foot top plate and then decided to go with a cathedral ceiling on the interior, so that allows us to have a ceiling that goes from 8 to 11 or 12 feet on the interior, as opposed to using trusses and going with a 9-foot ceiling. So we were able to bring the volume down by a foot to 18 inches over what would traditionally be a truss roof. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. And then the front staircase, I don't know if you had a chance to see, it's quite steep, doesn't meet code. It's very inviting from that, from the street, from the sidewalk, and we'd like to mitigate solicitors. And so we're very excited to come up with this idea to encapsulate the bulk of the staircase within that existing porch and give more front yard to garden space. And so that's the intent here. Also, I would like to point out that the clients currently live in Albany. They're committed to being in Albany. They have purchased this home so that they can make it what they need to. Their existing home is on as we know in Albany, is on a smaller lot. And so they don't have the ability to grow it the way they need to meet their family needs. And so they've chosen to continue investing and living in Albany. A couple questions that I will have for the commission is that in looking at window product lines, we're leaning towards either like a Sierra Pacific or a Marvin, but what's happened is the Marvin Integrity line, which sometimes is the default once you get into costing, doesn't have that 2-inch setback. It's 1 3/4, and so I would ask the commission be willing to approve that here in case we get to the point of costing out and we need to save some money, and we would ask that you'd be willing to consider the Marvin Integrity line. And the other thing is that the contractor, and he apologizes, missed the deadline, the 10-day deadline for the story pole installation. He just dropped the ball, and it wasn't intentional. And when he found out, he pulled his team off and ran and did it. So they went up on Saturday as opposed to on the 10-day, and we apologize for that. A couple things I want to give you is it's a 3D model of the massing that might be helpful. And it's a proposed color scheme, which shows the house currently is a very light color. It's unfortunately not doing very much for the architecture of the house, and we would like to propose something a little bit richer. And so I have an image that's closer to what we're proposing and the colors. Who should I hand this to? We have read all the letters from neighbors, and I'm very happy to answer any questions or provide any reassurance. Some of the questions are answered by looking through the drawings, and we can go through those one at a time, but I thought it might be better to let the neighbors come up and voice their concerns, and then we can kind of work through them together.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, you had a
Couple
question?
questions. The Marvin Integrity line, sorry, I don't know what that is. How does that vary from?
It's so it's made by Marvin. It's their contractor grade line. It has a slightly different profile. It's a little bit thinner in its the frame.
It's fiberglass?
It's
or wood?
It is fiberglass. So Jerry Holland highly recommended it for a project that we worked on. She was the historical architect on a project up in Sonoma, And we had to have a whole historical report, and she actually specifically recommended the Marvin integrity line for this historic building, which is why it's now kind of our go-to. It's about 25% less in cost than the full Marvin line, so it can be quite a savings for clients if they choose to, you know, we get to that point and we need to shift over.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, yeah.
No, I think,
I just want to clarify two things. This is helpful, thanks for providing it. So the stairway in the front actually goes in both directions?
Yes, and it's so that you know, when you're coming home with groceries or whatever, you don't have to kind of walk around to the sidewalk and go up. We've tried to give them a little bit of an area that they can unload the car, unload the kids, you know, take their groceries right up, and it feels a little bit more private, I guess. They're private, you know, couple steps.
So the second question was on the south elevation, just next to the stairway, it looks like there's I'll call it a box, but there's created area. Is that going to be for a gas fireplace? Was that the intent there?
I'm sorry, are you looking at the elevation?
The side elevation south.
And would you be able to bring that elevation up?
It might take a minute to bring the elevation up.
If I believe it is. What we're doing is recommending removal of the heavy chimney and the firebox on the one side of the house, and we're shifting it to the other where we have more room to the property line. And I'd like to point out that we have letters from both the immediate adjacent neighbors giving their what's the right word? Approval of the design. So even the neighbor that's 3'4" from the property line is generally agreeable to the design.
So in the living room or family room, and there's a fireplace, but it's a gas fire?
It's a gas
Okay,
insert.
all right, thank you.
and just one last question. And so all of the new windows throughout are, as proposed, will be the Marvin integrity line?
Well, right now, it's the Marvin line, but what has happened in the past, I've had 2 projects in Albany where we get to the point to construct and the cost of construction is going up so fast that by the time we get to that point, that's an immediate savings, and so the clients have wanted to shift to the Marvin integrity line because it's still a good quality product, but it's a little bit of a cost savings. I have several projects in Albany that already have the integrity installed, and if you wanted to pull them up, we could look at them together on Google Earth.
Okay. And then I guess my other just kind of question for you in general is, so I understand you're extending the non-conforming northern wall that has a 3-foot 4-inch setback. Mm-hmm. But it also looks like you're putting a lot of windows in it, and I don't mean to sort of say that's bad or good. I guess I'm just kind of curious, have you thought about the aspect of fire rating and just fire in general with that? I know you have the neighbor's approval, so
We have a
that goes
project
long
on
way.
Nielsen right now that is 2'10" from the property line, and so we had to fire rate that entire wall of windows. But as long as we're past the 3-foot mark, we don't have to fire rate it to the level that I think that anything less than the 3 feet. So, so in this case, we can go ahead and use a standard type of window.
Okay, thank you.
And Stacy, that basement, is that existing or is that added?
No, that's proposed. It's the husband is a wine collector, and honestly, that was my recommendation. He had wanted to possibly put wine storage out in the new accessory building where the garage is going, and I felt for safety, for security, it's better to have it kind of locked up with the house, and I felt like it would be used more often if it was accessible. So it's currently not triggering additional square footage. However, we just met with the engineer, and he had mentioned that it might be wise to pull that front wall let's see, do we have the plan of it?
Yeah.
Page 6.
So the engineer has recommended that we consider moving this to this wall. And if it does, I believe it pulls it out of the ground enough that we then have to fold it into the calculation for floor area ratio, because it's more than, part of it is more than 4 feet. So I'm asking for this at this time, and then you can let us know if that would be agreeable. We're about 600 square feet less than what the maximum is for this lot, so we could easily accommodate that, but it's all under the house, there's no windows. I just want to be open about that conversation.
What is the ceiling height for that space?
You know, we're proposing that it be about 8 feet.
And what were the engineer's reasons, I'm sorry, I might have missed that, for moving that, proposing to remove that wall?
Well, okay, so we got the soils report back, and it appears that when this street was fabricated, a lot of the soil was shifted up the hill, and so the soil, the bearing load is much deeper than you would imagine, and so we're going to have to put a very deep footing here. And by the time we do that, by the time they dig down to make that footing, we've already dug the room anyway, and so it might make sense just to shift the court. But as I said, we're in the preliminary stages of the structural, and so it hasn't been figured out at this point.
Okay. Are there any other questions for the applicant's architect? No? Okay. Thank you, Stacy. We'll now open this up to the public for comment. If you have any comments, please, if you can, fill out a speaker card and give it to Anne, and she will call your name.
All right, the first 3 speakers are Susan Boat, Braun Friedhandler, and Lawrence Jossens. When your name is called, if you could line up at the podium, that would be great. You'll have 3 minutes to address the commission each.
And so the first name that she called can come
The
up.
first name is Susan Boat, the second name is Braun Friedhandler, and the third name is Lawrence Jossens. If you prefer to go first, that's fine.
I am Bram Friedhandler. I don't have much to say. I'm watching my time start. This is our first Planning Commission meeting, but it's our 28th year, Susan and I, in Albany, and we're glad to have this opportunity to exercise to make our concerns known about this project, which is going to have a considerable impact on our situation. We live at 916 Ventura, just over the fence. And we look forward to living there for a long time to come. We're very pleased to meet our new neighbors and look forward to welcoming them to the neighborhood. We've certainly seen second-story additions going up in many places around Albany, and so we're not surprised to see that there's one planned for the backyard, and we understand the staff has recommended approval. It certainly was striking to us when the story poles went up on Saturday to see what a significant difference it's going to make to us. And we know that such things are happening in Albany and have happened to our neighbors, so we accept that they may happen. But we gave a good deal of thought to the things that we hope the commission and our neighbors and the architect will consider that would make a significant difference in what our experience will be as the new neighbors. And we hope the commission received our letter and has a chance to review it. We would highlight some things that are in there that we think could not have too great an impact on our neighbor's situation, that could help us considerably, such as making sure that there's no landscaping that's planned that would further encroach on our view, and to do something effective, and Stacy might be the best to know what it would be, but something effective to make sure that the hot tub that's planned doesn't give the characteristic hot tub sound that looks like our neighbors, that they don't want that either. So that's good news. And we understand there can be drainage issues. We're concerned about those. We have, we all know it can happen when water just backs up. So with that, we just wanted to highlight the items in our letter. I hope that will all be considered. We heard Stacy mention that we could walk through them with her and with our new neighbors. We don't know if that happens here or elsewhere, but we would certainly, like to do that. Thank you.
Can we ask a question? Sure. Could I ask, so with your letter, I was trying to clarify a few things. The acacia, oh, I'm getting the letters mixed up. Okay, sorry.
Larry's letter, yes.
That's right, it's Larry's letter, sorry.
Yeah.
Did I have your letter? Or you're the one, you sent it in the email?
It says Susan Boat at the top and then me underneath it.
It's on the, yeah, never mind, I had no question about that.
Okay, all right, very good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Would the next speaker like to address the commission? Okay, very well. No, please, come up.
Take advantage, the 3 o'clock, 3 minutes is 3 minutes. My name is Larry Jost. I live at 914 Ventura. Purchased a house around 1986 and lived there since. And I've outlined basically 3 comments and I've given them to you. And the first one is indeed a landscaping issue, namely that of the acacia tree sitting in the backyard of 923. It's a small little tree now, but I showed you pictures of what that tree can potentially be. The second item is one of a item with respect to land movement. Basically, the house at 923 Ordway is on a 10% grade. The land is moving, and we would like to see some details as far as if a retaining wall is put in, because the land is moving back there. The last issue pertains to the garage/storage bin that they have back there. That issue seems like to be a little bit more clarified by your presentation, but you brought up another one that wasn't there, namely the fireplace that apparently is going to be on the south wall. The poles that were put up on Saturday, I don't think reflect that fireplace height that's going to be there. So I'd like to see that remedied.
There's not a chimney.
There's a chimney.
No, there's no chimney.
So you just have the gas vent and it just goes up to the top?
It vents out the back.
It vents out the back, so there's no increase in height. So I can retract that last question because it's already been answered. I'd like to go back. The history of 923 Ordway, at least for the last 3 decades, in the backyard has been one of neglect. The previous owner, Mr. George, finally passed away a few years ago at plus 100 years old, and he kept the backyard natural, in which case deer came in, rats came in, everything came in. My being a resident on the backside, east side of the place, I took care of basically keeping firewalls or fire breaks between my garage and their subsequent backyard, kicking out the rats, the raccoons, and the assorted other animals that floated in and out of the place. But the principal one was picking up after an acacia tree. The acacia tree, if you have pictures of it, turned out to be about 70, 80 foot tall. It dropped branches. When it crashed through the garage, I repaired that. When other stuff fell down, repaired that and cleaned it. And I've done that for 20, 30 years, and I'm getting kind of tired. Item number 10 of your handout here, with respect to residential design guidelines, says landscape is an important aesthetic element of home design. Landscaping is proposed to remain. The acacia tree that's listed on the drawing is a couple foot away from the garage. The tree that grew to 80 foot was about 5 foot away from the garage, and of which one day, calm day, a limb came down. It came crashing down. It went between the then garage and the house. Fortunately, Mr. George, when he was in there, just had to burrow his way out of the trees that came to his back porch. It didn't hit anything. No one got hurt out of it. But that tree and acacia trees can fall. They can crash. I'm asking for that a tree be put off from the plot line at least a half of what the height of the tree can be. In this case, for an acacia tree, I'd like to see a minimum offset for that tree of 30 to 40 feet. And at that point, it's still questionable. If that tree falls, it can still hit my property, in which case I do not like it. The grading, done.
If you like, you can finish your comments.
The grading in the back, again, the land is moving. You can see that on my property. You can see it on 923 Ordway's property. And in which case, I would definitely like to have the design of the retaining wall be consistent with being on a 10% grade, and of which the retaining wall is 200 foot from a dry creek, or a covered creek bed, namely Marin Creek. So drainage problems, land subsidence problems.
Okay, thank you.
The details are not in the proposal that we saw. Questions?
Can I clarify? That level of detail is something that's typically reviewed at the building permit stage, and that's when the engineer will look at that in greater detail and apply a stamp to it. At the design review phase, we look at it more conceptually, but before a permit is issued, it is thoroughly reviewed by our plans examiner.
And of which will we have time to comment on that?
The building permit plan check process it's a staff level, it's ministerial, it's not a public hearing process.
Okay, that's a thought.
Thank you, but I will say, we have received your comments and we will discuss them tonight, so hopefully we will be able to come to a happy solution to all this. Are there any other, I think we got one more speaker card?
Yeah, one more speaker card. Julie Graves.
My name's Julie Graves. I live at 913 Ordway Street, and I apologize for getting here late. This is the 6th item on the agenda. I thought I was gonna make it, but you're Mrs. Davis? Nope. I'm Stacy. Stacy. Hi. We're your neighbors, or we are the neighbors.
That's, you know what, the incorrect name is White, but their last name is actually.
Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Hi. Hi. So, and I actually addressed myself to you in this letter. It was supposed to go out a couple days ago, but I ran out of time, so I presented a copy to Ann Hirsch, and I have one for you. We're your neighbors, thrice removed at 913 in the pumpkin-colored house, and we're writing in regards to the notice in a spirit of constructive communication. We've lived here for 30 years, and we did a second-story addition 20 years ago, and neighbors on 3 sides of us have done second-story additions, so we're kind of familiar with the process. It's a huge undertaking. Courage. There will be many surprises. Hopefully some of them at least good, and you'll love it once the agony is over. We want to raise a consideration with you as you proceed, which is in regards to the 3-foot 4-inch side yard on the north side. This is less than the 10% width of lot, which I believe is required by zoning. And your lot looks to me like it's 50 feet wide, approximately. That's the same as ours. So it would require a 5-foot side yard. We can, having been through this process ourselves, we can appreciate the desire to, whatever your design is, to get into that space. We actually had exactly the same issue on the north side of our house. And we respectfully request that you consider whether you can meet your needs without invading the side yard. Because it encroaches on the light, the air, and the space, and the privacy of your neighbors to the north, inevitably. And not just, those are your current and future neighbors. Our house is almost 100 years old. Yours may be of the same vintage. And in the condition it is now, since we remodeled it, it'll probably last another 100 years. So there will be generations of families who live with the decisions that we make in adapting Albany. Lots in Albany are narrow to begin with, and the whole neighborhood was built 1 story. Now it's pretty much going 2-story. So the purpose of the side yard is of the zoning of the side yards is to balance the needs of each property resident with the needs of the other property residents. And And in this case, as in many zoning abrogations, I think that the benefit to you comes at the cost to others. So that's why I'd like you to reconsider exactly how to do what you need to do. Even if your current neighbors are willing to go with that, you have to look 100 years into the future. And the other thing, once light and space are lost, they're pretty much gone forever. And even though the house is already closer to the house on the north than zoning would call for, if you're at the bottom of a narrow depression and it's shallow, you get a lot more light. The effect on light and air is much less than if you're at the bottom of a deep hole and you're looking way up. So as things are narrow to begin with, going up to the height of the second story really increases that issue. Another issue is that the character of Albany is guarded by our zoning laws. Denser, tightly packed homes are certainly an option for the city to adopt, but I think this should be a topic of discussion and deliberation by citizens as a whole through their representatives. Once a variance to allow a wider or taller or bigger home is allowed to one family at the expense of others, present and future, it becomes difficult in fairness, to enforce other zoning requirements, and the limits will be challenged more and more often. During our own remodel, we wanted to encroach on our 5-foot side yard by a mere 12 inches. Our architect told us, don't ask for a variance. He just didn't want to do it. And so what we wound up doing was we needed extra width in our second floor to have a bathroom and a bedroom and a hallway, and you will have reasons for needing that width. We moved the second story of our house 2 feet over so that it hangs, here's the ground floor on the south side, and the upper story goes out 2 feet and then goes up. Well, what does that do? It gave us our extra 2 feet that we wanted. It shades our,
Finish
let me
your
finish
thought.
this thing. It shades the kitchen in our house. We've lost some light there. And it cost more because it wasn't a straight wall. But we paid those costs rather than our neighbors to the north. And that seems to me like the fair balance. So I ask you to consider whether we found another way to get the width we needed without narrowing the side yard. And if you can set that back, you have to talk to your architect and do the numbers. But I think it's fair, and I think it benefits your neighbors. Even if your current neighbors want to be in the best possible relationship with you, because we all want that, it will come at a cost to them to have the houses close together. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure. Please come up.
Hi, I'm Susan Boat, Bram's wife at 916 Ventura, and I just felt compelled to comment now because if that happens, we have less of a view and we're already losing most of our view. So please don't move the house at all south. Thank you.
Are there any other public participants who'd like to speak on this item? If not, I will close the public comment period.
I also just want to add something. There was an email exchange that I had with the neighbor to the north at 919 Ordway, Tom O'Brien. He did not have any issues with the project as designed.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, we have something from the audience? Would you like to? Okay, thank you. Okay, I will close the public comment period on this item and open it up to the commission for discussion. Would either of you like to start the discussion?
Yeah, a couple of questions going back to the three issues that Lawrence brought up. So I didn't get a chance to ask questions, but the acacia trees, were they planted or are they self-sprouted? Those three acacia trees that you said, because that one there, but the two new ones you're talking about. The new one has been planted. And there's one right behind the garage, and there's one. The one that's labeled on the plan is over near the.
Okay. Okay, this is being broadcast, so if we're going to have people speak from the audience, I need you to come up to the podium and use the microphone so that we can record this and have it all on record. And we'll get to you too.
The history with respect to the acacia tree, in 1986, it was present when we came. It had subsequently fell down, half of it about 10 years ago. About 3 or 4 years ago, they ripped the rest of it out. Post that time, another tree was planted. That was maybe about a year or so ago, we noted it.
By Mr. George?
No, it's probably by, at that time, the owner was in question. It was a rental property at that time. A number of other trees were planted, guessing about 5 or 10 redwoods that were planted right almost next to the property line. We subsequently protested and they ripped those out, but they left the acacia tree behind. So it's my belief that the tree was planted at that time because it was noted, it was all of a sudden a 10-foot tree.
All right. Yeah, I would agree that acacia is probably not a good tree for that spot. And I don't think you guys would have a problem taking it out. Yeah, choosing a more appropriate.
It's on your drawing.
So thank you, sir. You can have a seat now.
All right.
Thank you.
So,
Maybe Stacy or the applicant, would you like to come up and sort of rebut these comments and maybe clarify for commission?
Yes, the concerned acacia tree has never been meant to remain. That was a holdover from the survey that accidentally made it onto our site plan, so I apologize for that. As for setting the house back, if I understand correctly, it's a 4-foot setback, and we're at 3'4", so that means we would have to move the house that much in order to meet code. And it doesn't make a lot of construction sense to create a lump on your house and to shift the whole second story by that much. And I know that in Albany, it's very common to extend existing non-conforming walls, and so we would ask that you would continue to allow that in this case.
So then please, could you clarify for me? So the proposal for this project then, in terms of the landscaping in the back, is to, I guess I don't know what currently exists
Right.
and what is going to be, what are you proposing? If you could clarify that.
It is it's not steep, but it's a sloped backyard. It's very wet right now. There's a lot of water that's draining onto the property from the yards beyond. And so what they'd like to do is create kind of a good retaining wall and level the backyard that has a French drain so that it picks up drainage from the properties behind and carries it out to the street. And then it's going to give them a little bit more of a usable space. And that's the concept. We, of course, haven't fully designed the planting scheme, but it's not intended to be a forest or, have timber bamboo. It's really meant to be a usable space for their family.
I think it's similar to the house on the north, did the same thing, didn't they?
The backyard with the retaining wall?
Yeah, did they cut back in there?
I haven't been in their backyard, so
I think it came before us. I remember
Okay.
seeing that,
919 Ordway?
yeah.
It's been a while, but I was in that backyard. I mean, it's largely usable. There are some mature trees, I think, back there, but
Oh, well,
there's,
I'm getting confusing. I thought that was a plan that we reviewed this last year, but maybe not.
yeah, I think it came, I think it was here. Well, the construction's complete. 919 Ordway, it's a second-story addition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right, okay, and I thought in the plan they had leveled it to do the same sort of thing.
They
Right.
probably,
Yeah.
it kind of makes sense when you're out at the site to see that.
Yeah, their backyard is relatively level. They
Yeah.
have a deck and doors that go out. It's a usable backyard.
Okay, and how tall would the retaining wall be?
You mean when it's completed? It's going to be over 30 inches, so the whole thing's going to have to be engineered and drained, and it's going to have a proper system, and the inspector is going to have to review it. I mean,
Okay.
that's why we've included it as part of the scope here.
Okay.
All right.
And so the existing acacia tree will remain, but you don't have any plans necessarily at this moment to plant any other trees? in
No, the
backyard?
acacia tree was never meant to, it was an accident that it's on the
Okay.
drawings. So I apologize, that's a drafting error and on my team's part. But
Okay.
there's no intent to keep the acacia tree. It's not in the best interest of them. They don't want to maintain it. It sounds like the neighbors are not interested in it either, so they would like the yard for usable space.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you.
And one, you said the house is, Stacy, sorry, one more question, maybe you, Suzanne. The north side setback is 3.5 feet?
It's currently set back 3'4".
So, but on this matrix here, it says north side is 1.5 feet.
Oh,
Right, we went with the lowest setback, and that's the bathroom.
would you pull up the
Oh, the bump out, okay.
the floor plan?
Yeah. So if you look here, this is the, this bathroom bump out, and that's not proposed to be altered. This is the wall that's going to be extended vertically.
Okay, got it, got it.
And the bump out is existing, correct?
It's the existing exterior wall, right?
Okay.
Right, Ally Watts is going to have a field day with us in fireproofing that, so.
Any other questions for the applicant's architect? Okay, thank you, Stacy.
Okay.
Any other thoughts on the project in general, its design, or?
Well, I really liked what was done to the front steps. I mean, the way they look now, it's not welcoming, especially the handrails. It's terrible. So I like the sensitive new entry a lot. I think it makes it much more functional, pulls it off the street a little bit, makes a more usable front yard. I think it's a nice, the addition, way it pulls in on both the east and west side, so it doesn't have the full impact of the whole building going straight up. Makes it look smaller than a huge box that it could have been. The articulation of the roof is nice. I generally like the plan a lot. You're always concerned about obstructing views, but it is within our legal height limit, so I don't see any real reason to object. It's lower than the one to the north, and they're not really complaining about the view shed. So although I'm sensitive to view loss on the people in Ventura, I don't know how, there'll be some, but part of the urban problem, I don't know what we can do about that. And I don't think it's worth shifting those few inches for the gain, whereas, oh, there, yeah, hi. Yeah, I appreciate what you're saying, and those subtleties can be useful sometime, but in this situation, I don't see the advantage. My comments.
I guess I would concur with Chris's comments. I like the overall design and the massing, and we have given, this was the request here is for a conditional use permit, and I think we've done that several times. I have had concerns in the past where it's been at the lot line. We had to consider that in the past. This is a little bit over 3 feet, so I don't really have a problem with that.
Okay. Yeah, I concur generally with both commissioners. In terms of the design and the aesthetics of the project, I like it. I think it's an improvement over the existing bungalow style, if you will. And I think it's modest in terms of its design. I think the front entry is a good improvement. In terms of the basement, I guess just in general, we get a lot of projects with these smaller lot sizes, and they generally end up having sort of several or multiple exceptions that they're applying for, and so I appreciate that the applicant is only applying for one exception to the zoning code. And so my point being, I wouldn't try to push the square footage for the basement. But otherwise, I like the design, and as Val has said, we've approved other non-conforming walls that were within the side yard setback. And given that both neighbors do not object to the extension of the non-conforming wall, I'm okay with it. And I sympathize with your concerns about your views and light. Unfortunately, we don't have any sort of legal basis to to control that, besides the height limits, as Chris said. It seems like the issue with the landscaping and tree is resolved, and the retaining wall will be addressed as they go further forward with structural engineering and building inspection. So hopefully that should meet and will meet code requirements, and hopefully address any subsidence issues in the future. I guess unless there are any other thoughts from the commission, open to take a motion on the.
I have one clarification question, sorry, back. Looking at your front elevation, right there, the top of the wall, is that a handrail that's going up the wall to the front door? Or is that like a 10-inch railing or something?
Yes, if you look to the side elevations as well, we've left the height of that parapet wall the same, and then we're adding the handrail on top of it as a detail, and it might be wrought iron or, is it here?
Okay,
But we have to shift from 42 inches as a guardrail to 36 inches as a handrail, and so that's why you see the difference in height. So where it's angled, it only needs to be 36 inches above the stairs, but then it has to shift to a 42-inch high guardrail at the landing.
so the wall itself is the same height as the existing?
Right, that's the existing parapet wall, and so we're trying to honor that because we're keeping it
Okay.
also, if you look on the north elevation, we just didn't want to take the wall up to 42 because it
Right,
starts to feel
I agree.
pretty,
And the existing one has like a little gutter opening or something for the.
yeah, we'd like to, I've taken that out of the drawing because we're going to figure out another way to drain the front porch.
Okay,
But you can see, we're keeping the arches that are existing on the porch here and here. And this is the existing height of the parapet wall, but we have to add a guardrail to bring it to 42 to meet code.
okay. I was just noting, it just looks like there's a way to soften, you could do it with landscaping easily enough, that it looks like it's probably about 13 or 14-foot wall at the front of the house.
You know what, we actually had discussed putting a nice planter or something that would mitigate that height. So we're completely open to that.
Yeah, I think something that's the part that bothers me about the new arrangement also is, could be, I mean, you could easily mitigate it, but if not mitigated, it's kind of a little bit of a yawn.
You have a recommendation, we'd be willing to
Yeah,
consider.
a nice little Tibucina.
You have a
purple
specific
flowers or
plant,
something, yeah.
purple lavender? Okay.
I guess the only comment I'll make about the handrail, because Chris kind of sparked in my mind, is that hopefully I guess I'd like to recommend that you stay away from kind of an industrial look and either look at, some kind of powder-coated metal that's painted or a wood railing, something like that, rather than a stainless steel handrail.
I agree. I think that's a good comment. We would probably do something, if it was metal, more in like the vintage wrought iron look, but we would still, I'd like to do wood where your hand touches because it seems a little warmer. But like I said, I suspect as we get closer to costing, it might end up being wood.
Okay, that's okay.
And I take back my Tibucina suggestion, doesn't go with this. Something with white flowers,
White flowers,
Yeah.
okay. Okay.
not purple.
Thank you. I guess the only comment I'll just make to the commission is I think I would be open to, as a condition of approval, the submittal of a landscaping plan with the project and have that be something that staff reviews. Just because it seems to play landscaping seems to play a crucial issue in terms of the public's understanding.
Yeah,
And
I think it's a good idea for the rear understanding in the front, some suggestion of what you plan on doing there, that'd be great. But that staff would review, yeah.
Yeah. I guess unless there are any other comments from the commission, I can open it up to a motion.
All right. I make a motion, we pass Item 2016-1, 27 PZSR 923 Ordway, as stated by staff.
If I can make a friendly amendment, which is to ask for a landscape plan to be reviewed by staff.
Wonderful.
I second that.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The project,
All right. Yeah, I don't have a problem with the,
have we ever had any project that hasn't met that requirement?
Certain flexibility has been granted in the past for different window types based on the architecture of the home. I mean, we approve integrity products at the counter all the time. They're a high-quality product. I
Okay.
have them in my house.
Okay.
yeah, I've seen them, yeah.
Yeah.
So we have a motion to approve planning application 15-107, design review and conditional use permit for a second-story addition at 923 Ordway, with the condition that a landscape plan be submitted to staff for approval, which has been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Your project has been approved, and we are okay with the Marvin integrity. If it comes to that, you have a 14-day appeal period. So please do not remove your story poles until that period is over. Otherwise, your project has been approved. Thanks. And am I correct that we have no new business?
No new business this evening, just a couple announcements.
Okay, great. If you'd like to tell us about the announcements.
Sure. Your February 10th meeting has been canceled, so we'll have our meeting on February 24th, so you'll have an extra night off.
Yeah.
And should I just ask, 2015 was a very busy year. Have things slowed down or just things have not moved forward?
Well, I have a few applications right now that are going to come to you on the 24th. At least for two of them, I'm waiting for a couple additional details from those applicants.
Okay.
I will also tell you I'm going on vacation next week.
Got it, okay.
So if we were going to have a packet, it would actually have to go out this Friday. And for a couple items, it seemed like we could cancel it and move it out later in the month.
I was just curious about the pipeline, so that's helpful, thank you.
Yeah, it's unusual for us to cancel a meeting, although I think in this case, we'll come back to you on the 24th with.
So it's not
right now.
economic, it's not an economic indicator of sorts.
No, in fact, we've had two applications filed so far this year, and I got a call from an architect today who's going to submit an application for second-story addition. So we're still, I expect us to be busy.
Was there a report on the parking?
Yes. So we had both parking meetings last week. One in the morning on Thursday with local businesses, and one in the evening for residents. The meetings were done in concert with our parking grant, parking management plan that we're working on with ACTC. And I have to say, both meetings went really well. The business meeting was, I think, more informational. It was interesting, the merchants, I think they all had different ideas, and one merchant came in, and he said at the end, I had 100 questions. I was prepared to not, to be a bit skeptical, and he left and said, I don't have any questions. This answered everything for me. So I took that as an indication that I think people felt like they got answers, particularly on the business side. The resident meeting was a little bit better attended. So at the business meeting, we had maybe a dozen or so attendees. The resident meeting, we had over 20 attendees. And it was a very lively discussion. And I would say that meeting went well. And I think what was particularly successful about it is that the moderator, David Early, who had presented to the commission back in September, was very engaged with all of the attendees and kind of soliciting input about what is the problem and how do we resolve it. And at the end of the meeting, he did kind of some informational, like a straw poll, raise your hand if you support resident parking, and then gave a few different caveats. So we have a summary from the consultant of those meeting notes that we'll be sharing with you at a later point in time. But I thought both meetings went really well.
And can you, I wasn't able to go, but what they had presented to us was more existing conditions, the survey results. It sounds like they were testing certain proposals.
Well, in
into
this
both?
case, it was interesting. They actually more or less took the same presentation that they gave to the commission, but then they solicited input from the attendees of what do you perceive the problems to be, and that helped to pinpoint issues, particularly around Solano, where some of the residential streets have spillover from the commercial.
So they weren't, at this
uses.
point, proposing any types of ranges
No.
of solutions. They were just trying to identify concerns.
Right, exactly.
Is there any sort of like formal write-up or minutes from those meetings?
We will have a summary, and those meetings were also video recorded. In case you're interested, you can watch a video recording.
All right. Thank you.
Sorry, I did have
Where will that be posted, that video report?
It should be on KALB on the city's website.
So under, just go under KLB, okay.
Yeah, I think it'll be under parking meeting or special meetings.
I did have a question on, at the last meeting, we had some discussion about the work plan, and I don't know, does that go to the city council at some point, or is it?
Yeah, in fact, I believe the city council looked at it, I guess it would have been, it was last Tuesday.
So was there any feedback on, or direction that they had, or?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. If there's any other, I guess there's nothing else, I will close the meeting. Thank you.
Fine job.
Yeah.
Thanks.
What other city council have you, or city planning commission?